Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, my dear students. As you know, you are doing your course of History of English Language with me. So, in the current lecture, we would talk about the language of England before English. The objective of this particular topic is that after completing this topic, you would be able to understand the linguistic history of England before English came here. So to understand basically the history of English language, you need to understand where did it start, what were the circumstances, and what were those physical and cultural situations of the land and of the area where it took birth and it started. You also need to understand what kind of people were living there, what were their living circumstances. So this lecture would build a kind of preamble for your understanding of the upcoming history that you would understand. English basically was introduced in the middle of the 5th century in England, and it had a career of extending till 1500 years. If we think of whether we have some knowledge or information about the language and the culture of that times, well, I would say we have really very, very little knowledge of the times. Any knowledge that we have, it comes through not the language, but through the culture and the material settings of the times. To understand what kind of people were living in England before English came here, we need to understand the early inhabitants. And if we go for the classification of these inhabitants, we can understand that this classification again is based on their material culture. Before the discovery of metal, human beings were largely dependent upon the use of stone for making their living and for ensuring their survival. Generally speaking, this Stone Age, because it is a very, very long period, it can be divided into two parts. However, it lasted in England till 2000 BC. The people here, they were using stone weapons even till the Battle of Hastings in 1066. I assume that you have some idea of that Stone Age gave way to the Age of Bronze. Bronze, as you know, is a metal. And from Bronze Age, there was a gradual progression towards the Iron Age, which was a far developed time of human history. And this was about somewhere 500 to 600 BC. As I have earlier said, that Stone Age is a long period, so in order to understand this age, this age is divided by historians and by linguists into two parts: the earlier period and the later period, the old period and the new period. The old period is called Paleolithic Stone Age or Paleolithic Age. The new Stone Age or the later Stone Age is called Neolithic Age, and I guess the word new would provide you a clue for this Neolithic word. These two periods are the divisions of the Stone Age, but the Stone Age, when we come to the Paleolithic humans, they were at the very early end of human history. These people had certain characteristics, certain body features, certain kind of culture in which they lived. And these were the people who were basically, in terms of physical appearance, they were short-structured. They were also short-legged, which means they had shorter legs than we later on in the history of humanity find. The foreheads of these peoples were comparatively low, and their chins were not properly developed. So, in the divisions of human history, what you can notice is these are the people who are the human beings with the very early stages of human evolution. The living style of these people, when we talk of that, well, I would say they lived in the open, or to the maximum what they did was that they lived in caves. It is very important to notice what kind of food they ate. Well, the very early stages of human evolution did not allow for a lot of resources or ways of getting food. So their main way of getting food was only through plants and vegetation and the forests around them. However, fish was the only exception that they had, and I think this was one of the ways that made their life slightly easier, and that provided kind of a different taste to their taste buds as well. If we talk of their language, what I would say is we do not have any clues as such about their language. It is very interesting, my dear students, to notice that these people about whom we don't know what kind of language they spoke, we have clues that they were artists. They had certain artistic skills. So they had artistic skills. They would make graffitis, they would make drawings, they would make carvings on the stones, on different trees, etc. However, it is very, very interesting that none of these samples of artistry show any clues of language. Their language, in fact, disappeared with their own disappearance. The second type in this Stone Age is of Neolithic, and it is a very convenient term, I would say, rather than a scientific term. These were, of course, far superior to the Paleolithic people. These people were people of a dark race. Their stature was largely, the same but slightly more built. And they had an advanced culture. When I say they had an advanced culture, it means, they started domesticating animals, they had some kind of agriculture, very elementary, very basic kind of agriculture, but of course, it was far more developed than the previous race. They also had some crude pottery that they made, and they could do some weaving as well. Their language has also not survived. But what I would say is that the Basque people, these were actually the forefathers of the Basque people. So the language of the Basque in today's world can give us some clues to them or to their language that they used. However, the Basque language itself has no other affiliation with any of the languages of the world today. So these first people in England are this group of people about whom we have some knowledge. These are Celts. Celts came to England with the Bronze Age, and the Celtic languages in England had two divisions, Gaelic and Brythonic branches. Celtic was probably I would say, the first language that was spoken in the Indo-European tongue in England. Another language that was spoken here was Latin, and it has a long history of 4 centuries here. If you think of this whole age now, you would realize that these 2 Stone Age divisions that I have talked about, they provide you the information about the early inhabitants of the area of England, where later on, at later stages of times, the English language evolved. So this was what the whole lecture was about. Thank you very much.